So how did you start realizing, the link with consciousness and physics? Or yeah.
Yeah. Um, when, okay, so consciousness, this is another image that works very well. If you think matter as this 5% that we know how to describe, that's like, let's say, the linear part of reality that can be described locally and linearly, right?
Okay. Yes.
But that remaining 96% that we just saw is also inside matter means it comes from non-local, non-locality, non-linearity. And when you talk about non-locality and non-linearity, then you're talking about um, things which that has boundary conditions that are not well defined, that are not defined yet. So if you think about that, you can feel like if information, if everything is made up of something that expresses itself as mass, but 96% of it is something that, well, we now know it's vacuum fluctuations in an organized regime, but what are vacuum fluctuations in reality? What is this entanglement network that is connecting everything, which is basically that 96% that's missing in the modern physics realm? Then you see that um, everything is just an expression of this information flow. So I like to think about consciousness not as a thing, but as a process
Hmm.
of a process, the process of like a verb, let's say. I like to think of consciousness not as a noun, but as a verb,
Hmm.
and it's the process of this flow of information going through all these phase transitions and permeating everything, like going outside, coming inside, like creating loops of feedback, feed forward, which is those places where we could say, okay, this is self-awareness because we're having that, flow in, flow out,
Feedback,
that
feed
you're
forward.
in feedback, feed forward, that
Yeah.
you're really tapping into, and then you say, oh, uh, beautiful. So when I think about that, when I think about consciousness, I think of it as a process, which is why I like to think of let's say of God as a mechanism, of spirituality as a mechanism, not as a thing, not as a not as a noun. It's a mechanism. And and it's really like for me, for instance, in my case, I I didn't know that was the word consciousness per se, because since I was a child, I would have many let's say premonitorial dream. I would have many things that would fall into the category of um, of the psyche, of the movement of the mind, of the psyche. No, so
Mhm.
but for me, as I said, there was no difference between physical reality and mind. I never saw that as a, oh, there's a division here and there's mind and there's physical reality. I didn't know that was a topic, that was an issue
Mm.
for me, I lived my life like without integrated as a whole. And then I knew that no, that's not correct from the perspective of the outside. From
So did you understand that everything was happening within you? Is that what you mean by you didn't know it was an issue? Like you didn't separate your mind from physical reality?
not just not, I was not saying it was all happening in me, but I would say that there's a level of correspondence between what's happening inside and what's happening outside.
Mm, you knew that. Okay.
Yeah, I could feel that. Like if it's like a continuum, like there's a continuum, not of everything, of course, no, because then, and you also find philosophical problems like, okay, so then if you and me are talking here, I'm my product of your imagination, you're a product of my imagination. Now that it's really removing the objectivity of it. There's theories, philosophical theories that say that everything is subjective, that there's the only thing that exists is the intersubjectivity, the interobjectivity, which is basically subjectivity. And that's when I say, no, there's a level of objectivity, which is real, which is grounded, not just. So that really taps into nature of reality, in a philosophical sense, which goes beyond that notion that everything outside of you is only happening inside of you. If that was the case, exactly and absolutely, there would no be the experience of the other. It would be impossible. That the experience of the other self, of another self, would not be possible. You really need, um, uh, just as I am the center of the universe from my perspective, and you are the center of the universe from your perspective.
Hmm.
There's also the perspective of the fly, of the cat. Everything is having their own experience, no,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
grasping that and understanding that that doesn't translate into everything happens just with respect to you. It is not exactly like that. There's a mixed state, and that mixed state is what allows um, everything that we see as reality. It is the mixed state. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm thinking about, so, uh, okay, so what I think about is when we have a dream, for example, right? So
Mhm.
when we have a dream, sometimes we're actually off in other parts of the universe, but I think sometimes we're just walking around a three-dimensional construct of our own mind, right? And
Uh-huh.
so all of the objects in the dream, and maybe even some of the beings in the dream, right? So like I had a dream once that there was a snake approaching me, right? So there's a snake, and then there's whatever else was in the dream, and I experienced space in the dream. But all of that is appearing inside my mind, my consciousness, right?
Yes.
So it's one thing, which is my mind,
Yes.
appearing as many different things,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So I think of this reality as that too. It's one thing, it's the mind of the universe appearing as many,
Yes.
right? And so each part of that dream, like you are part of that dream, and you, from your perspective in that dream, you are having your perspective, your feedback, feed forward
Yeah.
dynamic of the totality. Not the
Yes.
totality, but of this section of the universe,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
because it's a mind, right? Because the dream is a mind, we can expand our awareness so that we don't just experience ourselves as these two local beings. We can expand our awareness and wake up to that greater mind,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's so that's what I when I've been listening to you all talk, because this is basically Vedanta too, the science of
Yes.
consciousness, which is Vedanta, right?
Yes.
So I also had an experience where I felt myself, it was just random. I had been doing a lot of meditations, but and doing a lot of Kundalini yoga and different types of meditations and studying Vedanta. And I had this experience where it was just one evening when I was home alone, home with my daughter and my boyfriend. And I went to lay down next to her, and all of a sudden I felt weightless. Like I felt completely weightless. Like I felt like
Mhm.
space. And I I was my head felt, everything just felt so weightless, and I was like, what's happening? And I looked out into the room, and everything was light. I could see that the walls were light, like, it was just tiny
Yeah.
units of light, and I could see that space wasn't empty. It had like some substance to it,
Yeah.
and I felt completely at one with the space. So I was the space, and everything was appearing in me. So,
Yes.
right, so I had it's basically experiencing reality from the field level,
Yes.
right? And so then
Yes.
I
Yes.
started walking down the hall because I was thinking I was dying because I felt myself rising up like an expansion like this. And I was like, oh my God, I'm dying. Like I'm leaving this reality. And it started fading, like everything that I see as material objects and space started fading just like a dream. You know, when you start
Mhm.
to wake up from a dream and it all
Yeah.
starts to disappear,
Yeah.
that's it. It was all disappearing just like a dream. And I thought, okay, I'm dying. So I started to walk down the hall, but because I felt so weightless, I went to put my hand out to touch the wall, and my hand went through the wall.
No way.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm leaving. Like, I'm leaving this reality because I had this understanding. I knew from Vedanta that it was an illusion,
Yeah.
right? So Vedanta teaches that Maya, which is another word for the creation,
Yes.
is and is actually Maya is also another word for God because
Yes.
Maya is the illusory part, is the
Yes.
creation, which is an illusory part of the unmanifest, the absolute, is what they okay. So Brahman,
Okay.
they have the absolute, which is the unmanifest, and then the universe appears, or Maya appears within that absolute.
Okay.
Okay. So I
Okay.
had this understanding, but I didn't know. I would always walk around after I learned this, I would walk around and go, how is this an illusion? Like, how is this really an illusion? And then that night I experienced it. So I was walking down the hall and I went to put my hand out and my hand goes like the wall was just like a dream, like just,
Yeah, it
you
was
know,
like, yeah, it was no longer solid. It
no
was
longer solid.
like
Yeah.
a liquid. You could go
Hmm.
through it.
Yes, exactly. It just
So
was
you
like
had changed of
right.
state. Yeah.
So that it was what I discovered from listening to you all, conversations with William as well, is basically I was in that moment, not purposefully because I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I somehow was able to experience myself at the level of like the Planck field, I think is what he told me.
Probably, yeah.
So I was below the forces. I was below like gravity and
Yeah.
I guess the toroidal spin. I was basically down by where the singularity is, I guess. Is
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah? And
Hmm.
that's why my hand could go through the wall. So I was below the forces.
Yeah.
So back to what we were saying is I feel like it's a mind. And so we can become aware. It's like waking up from a dream, right? So when you're in the dream, you think you're the dream self and you experience a dream reality. Now, so as you start to awaken in the dream, you can still experience yourself as the dream self, but you have a different perspective. You now understand it's a dream, and you can, because you have that greater perspective that it's a dream, you can make things move or you can change things
Yes.
in the
Yes. Yes.
dream.
You have, of course. Yeah.
And I just feel like this is another fractal of the dream. So we wake up from that dream into this dream,
Yes.
and we can also wake up from this dream and realize that we are this greater field that's holding all of this within it. And that
Yes.
is essentially what in Vedanta they would call unity consciousness and ultimately enlightenment.
Yes. Yes.